Welcome back to the second installment of College 101. This video is going to be talking about how to write applications for all the colleges that you are thinking about going to. So my first suggestion would be apply to at least 3 schools. And so these 3 schools would be a very safe school, so a school that has an acceptance rate that you know you can get into, your kind of middle of the row school that you know you're pretty sure you'll get into, but there's a little bit of leeway there, and then a reach school. So that's a school that you're not 100% sure you could get into, but you think there's still a little bit of a chance that you have the possibility of getting into that school. So this way you have a variety of options to choose from. I myself applied to 7 schools, but I also had friends who applied to 2 schools, and I had a friend who applied to 16. You really just have to do what's best for you, and if you don't really know where you want to go, maybe applying to 16 is the best choice for you. I think trying to stay within that 3 to 7 range is a good choice because you will still have a bunch of options once all the decisions come back, but you're not kind of in this overwhelming state of, oh my gosh, I have so many places I got into, I'm overwhelmed, but you're also not in the situation where you don't get in anywhere. Most four-year schools are using the Common App for all of their applications, and so what that is it starts as just a basic application that each school requires. And then underneath in a separate sidebar, you will have each of the schools that you're applying to and each of the schools' different requirements for their particular application. So what that means is you will fill out one application about your birthday, your name, all that basic information that every school will need. And then each school will have specific questions. So one of my schools asked, what is the most recent show you've binged on Netflix? And so those specific questions you'll have to answer for each specific school. My suggestion to you is to fill out all the easy portions first. So once you decide where you want to apply, there will be simple short answer questions like the one about the Netflix binging shows, but there will also be kind of fill in the bubble questions. And so my suggestion would be to fill out that portion on the Common App and then fill out those simple questions on all of your school applications first. And then leaving your essays for the Common App and leaving your essays for each of your schools till the end. So my suggestion for all of your essay writing is to A, don't leave it to the last minute because you'll be rushing and your essays won't be as good. B, get an editor, and C, use Grammarly. So for an editor, make sure it's someone you trust. So that can either be your friend who's the best writer you know, or a teacher that is a really good writer, someone who will be able to critique your work and make it better so that you have the best chance of getting into each school. And then Grammarly is a website that has a software program that you download onto your computer, and it's essentially a step above your average spell check that's on Google Docs or Word. And so this kind of goes in and fix all your grammar mistakes as well as your spelling and past tense, present tense, all of that. And so I think that's really helpful because sometimes when you're writing these essays, you get so frazzled because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get into the school, is this what the school wants? And so you'll be typing and then you'll make some silly mistake that you won't catch, but Grammarly will. So I really suggest using that. So just go to Grammarly.com and you can super easily install the software onto your computer. Another thing you want to take note of is submission dates. So a lot of schools will have their dates say, turn in by January 1st. And so make sure you look at those because if you're applying for merit scholarships or any other type of scholarship, they will often have an earlier deadline. The majority of the time you don't have to write anything extra for those scholarships. You just have to say that you are interested in the scholarships by clicking a button on one of the basic application questions, or you just have to submit it by an earlier deadline. So one of my schools said, if you want to be considered for merit scholarships, please apply by November 1st. If you are not, please send in your application by January 1st. So knowing those deadlines is super important just to make sure that you are able to take advantage of all of the opportunities that your potential school could offer to you. At the same time you're doing your applications, you also need to be filling out the FAFSA and looking for teacher recommendation letters. So the FAFSA is a financial aid form that every school requires to see how much aid the school itself can give you, how much the government can give you, and how much work study you can be entitled to. And so even if you don't think financially you'd be qualified to get any of this aid, it's still very important that you fill it out just so that, if something happens next year and let's say one of your parents lose their job, they will be able to see that there's a progression and that there's a circumstance that needs attention, and they can address the monetary situation from that. It's really important that you and your parents fill that out together, because eventually you're going to have to fill that out on your own. And so making sure that you know what everything means on that form and you know all the numbers that are necessary to fill out that form, I think it's very important that you and your parents do that together and get that submitted around the same time as your applications, even though it has a later due date. The last thing you need to complete your applications are teacher recommendations. And so this is a really fun part, because you get to go to the teachers that have had the greatest impact on you in high school and ask them to write a positive recommendation for you. I do suggest saying a positive recommendation, because sometimes teacher might say, you know, she wasn't very good in class, she talked a lot, and that's not what you want your colleges to see. So make sure you ask them for a positive recommendation. It's also important to give your teacher a deadline. So they need to have their recommendation letters submitted before you are able to turn in your applications. So give your teachers at least 3 weeks notice to write out the recommendation letters. This way it gives them time to go back, add new information before it has to be sent in, and then make their due date about a week before you need to turn in your applications. So this way, if there's any sort of delay, you won't be late for your submission date. For a timeline for your applications, I suggest start writing them in September or October, because oftentimes within those first 2 weeks of school there will be a few more awards or announcements for, you know, executive members that'll come out. Like, for example, National Merit finalists don't come out until the first few months of school, and you really want to put that type of information on your application. But luckily you can start doing those basic application questions way earlier on, like we talked about. I think it makes a lot of sense to figure out which schools you want to apply to by the end of August, so then you have at least 3 months to really perfect all of your applications, because a lot of the times if you're applying for merit scholarships, your applications will be due in November or December. But even still, if you decide where you want to apply by the end of August and your applications aren't due until January, that gives you plenty of time to perfect all of your applications, which will give you the best chance to get into all of your schools. Make sure to tune in to my next video for some advice on how to decide where you want to go to school.